But that's not the only thing that has me worried. Because the big rumor this week has to do with the Royal Rumble match itself. And an item in this week's Wrestling Observer about there being talk within WWE of The Rock being part of the show. And The Rock being part of the Royal Rumble, hey, that sounds great, right? I like The Rock. I have nothing against The Rock. But the idea, and this is said to be a pie-in-the-sky, perfect world scenario. Nothing that's been negotiated, nothing that's been confirmed. But the idea being that The Rock would enter the Royal Rumble match as the surprise 30th entrant and would win the entire thing. Now, there's said to be nothing more to it right now than that. It's just a rumor. It doesn't even sound like they have a commitment from The Rock to even be at the Rumble at all, let alone in the match. And the only thing for sure is that Meltzer says he was told that they're finalized, and this makes sense. Even if you're not a Meltzer guy, this makes sense. This is just logic here. That their finalized plans for the WrestleMania main event need to be locked in by mid-January. And whatever The Rock decides to do, he needs to let them know by then what his decision is going to be. And that's just common sense. WrestleMania is coming up in April. It's a 2-night event, right? This big event. You have the Royal Rumble at the end of January. You need to know who's going to win the Royal Rumble match in order to lock in your WrestleMania plans, right? Any idiot can figure that out. But we are rapidly approaching that point where in mid-January, we're only about 6 weeks away, maybe not even a full 6 weeks, they're going to have these plans locked in. The Rock has to let them know what he's doing. He's got to shit or get off the pot because Triple H has to put a show together here. He's got to put a main event together. A couple of main events. Now, they obviously want The Rock to wrestle Roman Reigns. They've wanted that match for years. And The Rock has been open to it. He's never said no. I'm sure he'd be willing to do it. You know, it's family, it's blood. He wanted it to be done in Los Angeles, which is why they went with Roman Reigns against Brock Lesnar again this year instead of doing it in Dallas. He wanted to wait another year, and if he was interested and could do it, he wanted it to be done in LA. Well, here we are. If they can get The Rock for one more match, Roman Reigns is going to be the opponent. It will not be anybody else. Tribal Chief against Tribal Chief. The match sells itself. It does not even need a championship. Rock showing up as a surprise in the Royal Rumble would be a big moment. And it would get that giant reaction, that huge pop, right? Except that now that it's out there, I don't think they would even do it. And this is one of those things. And it doesn't even matter whether you like the idea of The Rock winning the Rumble or not. Just forget that for a second. This is one of those things that I really wish they did a better job of keeping a lid on, because it really does ruin the moment when you read about it 6 weeks or 8 weeks in advance. It gives me content to talk about here, and we all speculate anyway. Even if this didn't come out, we would be speculating anyway for the next 6 weeks. Is The Rock going to be a surprise in the Rumble? Is Stone Cold Steve Austin going to be a surprise in the Rumble? There's been talk about him doing another match. Maybe he'll pop up in the Rumble. Imagine that reaction if the glass shatters in Texas at the Royal Rumble and nobody expects Stone Cold to walk out and there he is, right? What a moment that would be. So that's what we do. We all fantasy book and speculate anyway. But when you hear something like this, that it's actually being discussed internally and there's a chance it could happen, it does ruin the moment for you, right? It's hard to keep secrets these days. It's just the nature of how things are. It's the nature of people having the access that they have in social media and the different wrestling news sites, not just the Observer. It's hard to keep a lid on things. I appreciate it when they do have a big return and they're hiding somebody out in a bus. They fly them into a different city in a disguise and then they drive them to the bill, whatever the case may be. I appreciate it when they do stuff like that because it is cool sometimes to still keep that element of surprise that, you know, I remember when I was growing up as a wrestling fan and I was a teenage wrestling fan and people would pop up and I didn't know about it. You know, and a lot of people are deprived of those moments today, and it sucks. But Rock showing up would get a big reaction. But I'm not sure Rock winning the Rumble would get the desired reaction, especially if you have somebody like Sami Zayn or Cody Rhodes in there at the end of the match, and they don't win, but The Rock does. This is a Batista in 2014 situation all over again, where the people badly wanted to see Daniel Bryan win the Royal Rumble. He wasn't even in the match. So they shit on Batista. Batista did nothing wrong. They shit on Batista because he wasn't Daniel Bryan. He wasn't the person that they wanted to see win the match. The better story was Daniel Bryan winning and going on to challenge for the championship at WrestleMania. Now, they got there in the end. They took a funny way of getting there. Their GPS malfunction took them to the wrong city, so they had to, go out of their way to get to where their destination was, but they got there eventually. And in the process, they destroyed Batista as a babyface. And I know he was pissed about that because even he knew that it would bomb. And it did. It was a different kind of Batista bomb. Cody Rhodes is said to be recovering very well from his torn pec. He's been trying to put on some weight and some mass. He wants to get up to around 240 pounds, which would be the biggest he's ever been. He's already back lifting in the gym. When Cody comes back, he's going to be over huge. It would be impossible for him not to be after the performance that he put in that Hell in a Cell match. The guy he's a made man now. He has to be the favorite at this moment to win the Royal Rumble. But you also have Sami Zayn, who he's as popular now as he's ever been in his entire career. If he's in the Royal Rumble, and I see no reason for him not to be, at least in the match, he also has to be one of the favorites. And I think in either scenario, if you had The Rock in the ring with them there at the end, and they did not win, I don't think the crowd would take very kindly to that. What I don't want to see is Triple H sabotage the Royal Rumble match the way that Vince McMahon did in 2014 and 2015. That was self-sabotage. There was even a way to let Roman Reigns win in 2015 without pissing off the audience the way they did by dumping Daniel Bryan so early in the match, and they did it anyway. It's like I said last week, they have booked themselves into a corner by not splitting the championships by now. There was a time where they could have done it early enough going into WrestleMania season. They didn't do it. Now, there really is no good way to do it before WrestleMania. I mean, they could do whatever they want. They could show up on television this week, have Triple H come out and say, hey, we're splitting the title. Technically, they can do whatever the fuck they want, but there really is no good way to do it right now logically before WrestleMania. So you have Roman Reigns going into WrestleMania as the undisputed champion, with a potential match against The Rock that does not need to be contested for either of those championships. I also don't think Roman Reigns should be walking out of WrestleMania for the third straight year as a heel, retaining his title. So what do you do? If The Rock does not work WrestleMania this year, it's a pretty open and shut case. Cody Rhodes should win the Royal Rumble. Cody Rhodes should challenge Roman Reigns at WrestleMania and win the championship. Very straightforward. If The Rock does work a match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, he does not have to win the Royal Rumble. I am not a big fan of having Roman Reigns wrestle both nights, but you have him wrestle The Rock on night one and win. And then he goes on, and by the way, I mean, this is even better if you think about it, because what he does then is he goes on to defend his titles on night two against the winner of the Royal Rumble. So you can maintain that stipulation that the winner of the Royal Rumble gets the main event of WrestleMania, and that person beats Roman Reigns. With Roman Reigns beating The Rock, right, the biggest star in the world, beating The Rock the night before, it only enhances Roman Reigns, and therefore enhances the person who beats him the very next night. Because the guy who beat The Rock just got beat by the winner of the Royal Rumble. And you have Reigns wrestle on both nights. That would be the logical way to go about doing that. And you give people a Roman Reigns match on both nights. He's the biggest star in the company. Right? You may have people going to night one of WrestleMania and not night two, or vice versa. So you can look at it that way as well. You can't split the titles between both nights. So, for example, he defends one title on night one and the other title on night two. You can't do that, because when Roman finally loses, when he finally takes that first pinfall loss in more than 3 years, he has not been pinned since December of 2019 by Baron Corbin. Okay, when he finally eats that pin, he needs to drop all the gold, not just one of them. He drops one, he still has this other championship if it's the Universal title, and his reign continues. But you've already beaten him. The mystique is gone. So when he loses, he has to lose. He has to lose it all. And if Triple H is planning to do a draft after WrestleMania, that's the perfect time to split the titles again if they want to. Sami Zayn is going to get the shot against Roman at Elimination Chamber in Montreal, which is already sold out, by the way. And that's a big building. The Bell Center is a big building. I don't know how much of it is going to be tarped off for production purposes, but that's a big building. Over 2 months to go, not a single match announced, and they've already sold out the building. I think all but the most expensive platinum seats. Those might still be there. But those will be gone too, very quickly. Sold out to see Sami Zayn try to take the championships away from the Tribal Chief. But he will fall. And then we go on to Sami and Kevin Owens against the Usos at WrestleMania. So the pieces are finally falling into place. But this Rock stuff, him entering in number 30 and winning, remember, just because it's being discussed does not mean that it is etched in a stone tablet. Brian Gewirtz, who is very close with The Rock, still works with him, I think on a production end, and was the head writer for WWE for many years, saw a tweet about this whole thing being discussed, the ideas being discussed, and he tweeted about other things that were, quote, discussed during his time in WWE, such as, for instance, Vince McMahon having a midlife crisis, growing a beard, wearing Hawaiian shirts, and singing Black Eyed Peas songs. Or Kaval being revealed as The Undertaker's secret long-lost son. Or John Cena losing to Bray Wyatt by way of a singing possessed child. And then he said, oh wait, that one actually happened. And Bray tweeted back, he said, yes, it did. I need to know more about that Kaval idea. I may have to go to Low Key at the next House of Glory show and just ask him if he ever heard anything about that. That would have been wild. The point is, lots of things get discussed. Very few of them ever make it onto the air. I'm hoping this is one of those times. If The Rock is in the Royal Rumble, he wins. And The Rock should not win the Royal Rumble.